Rooted in Africa, connecting global communities and keeping you informed. Centec is a made-in-Africa digital infrastructure and content delivery company providing services on the African continent. As a state interventionist tool, the company is equally committed to its developmental agenda as it is to the provisioning of infrastructure that connects smart communities, people, and devices to deliver content and innovative solutions. Centec has committed itself to being at the forefront of Africa's digital revolution. Through our world-class digital infrastructure, we are connecting rural, peri-urban, and urban communities. We have embraced digital transformation to drive efficiency by concentrating on technological advancement, collaboration, and sustainable solutions. Interactive media services allow Centec to play in the digital media streaming domain by providing over-the-top services for both broadband and broadcasting customers. We also provide broadcast transmission services to all commercial, public, and community broadcasters. Through our broadband infrastructure, we are connecting institutions of learning, health facilities, and government institutions. One example is the use of broadband to provide access to our e-learning platform, Centec Learn, which is a cloud-based solution with features such as live classroom, catch-up lessons, digital books, live events, and video on demand. Our cloud services allow for low latency computing, including the provision of local data, storage and processing that will facilitate for easier cloud adoption and modernization of ICT resources. Our strategically positioned towers enable us to provide managed infrastructure of both passive and active infrastructure solutions with value-added services for customers, including facility leasing and co-location on our masts and connectivity and infrastructure services to the retail, telcos, and public sector. Centec is working on the development of the Pan-African satellite. This geostationary satellite will provide communications services, making Africa more self-reliant for its communications needs. Welcome to the world of connectedness. Welcome to Centec.
Hello.
Vulnerability assessment. Running a business today is all about being connected. But the more devices and connections your business has, the more vulnerable it is to cyber threats. Any weakness within your systems or processes is a potential vulnerability that could be exploited by cyber criminals looking to gain unauthorized access to your network and carry out attacks, including installing malware or stealing sensitive data. Research shows that nearly 50% of all external attacks are made by criminals exploiting a software vulnerability. To reduce the risk of an attack, it's important businesses understand what devices they have and if they're running the latest updates. At Vodacom Business, we can help you gain a better understanding of your company's ecosystem. Our
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. This is track 2, and this is the innovation and SMME. If you have colleagues that are still out at lunch, kindly send them a text so that they can come in. This is now the real deal for SMMEs that we'll be commencing with. We'll be so grateful if you can do that. We're going to change the program a bit. Dr. Tabo here will have to start off with his presentation on capital market solutions. And we'll then follow up with the panel. After that, the DG of the Small Business Development Department will come in and sort of consolidate with his presentation on the enabling policy environment. And I think at this moment, I see the critical mass is not yet reached, so I suppose we can give it maybe 2 minutes. because it seems like there was an announcement being made, and highly possible that the delegates are within the exhibition area. So we're going to continue. And as I've mentioned, we're going to start off with the presentation from Dr. Tabo from the Tari Capital, and he'll be delivering an input on capital market solutions that help mobilize financing for SMMEs. And it's such a pity that the people that are exhibiting outside are not here. This is one of the ideas where they can start learning on how to scale in their financial mechanisms. Dr. Tab, I'm going to allow you to take the floor. Thank you.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be here. What I'm going to do is I will start first by going to the market, just explain first who Tafari Capital is, and then look at the issues in terms of financing and what are the challenges that we are meeting, particularly as SMEs. But it's also important to also understand who we are. And I'll just start first by showing you a short video. Thank you. That was short, so I meant it when I said it's short. Tafari Capital was built because we realized there's a big gap in the market, a gap that does not address the needs of small business entrepreneurs and those people that we believe are unbanked and underbanked. And this is why we were set up, particularly to address this particular issue. We have created something quite unique, which is the closest thing you can be a bank without being called a bank, right? But at the same time, the closest thing that you can apply is if you look at a combination of Capitec, for example, and Take a Lot in one platform together. So which means that it will enable SMEs to be able to set up online stores on our platform and also open an account with us on the same platform. So you're actually addressing one of the key issues that SMEs always have, particularly on the lower end of the market, where access to banking services is always a problem. And in this case, not only will you be able to trade on our platform, but you also have to have your account, so there's no need for 3 months bank statements and all of that stuff. You have it in the same platform together. And one of the innovations that we have put together here is that we do both a closed loop and an open loop platform together. By that, it means you can trade with each other if you are Tafari shareholders, I mean, not shareholders, Tafari customers. And also, it gives you the same ability to go outside. So you can go to Pick n Pay and buy stuff, or you can go anywhere outside the loop. So the environment that we are creating allows you to not only transact within the same closed loop, but also go outside without needing to have an additional platform. The other thing that we have added in there is that we also have introduced some digital currency as well. And we have developed it. It will be the Ichankura coin. And that will be a utility coin that is going to be a means of trading within the platform. And later on in the future, we'll be able to then introduce currency or digital coin trading, which is, what the future is going. But this, as you get in and you register within the platform, you will basically be buying digital coins. And you will be using those to buy value-added services, airtime, electricity, buy products from other merchants that are in the platform. So I would encourage all SMEs that are available who have a product or a service to sell, that they must go onto Ichankura. You can find it on all the app stores, Huawei, Apple, and Google. Download, set up your own store, start selling to local and global markets. So this is what it would look like. One of the things that we have managed to do is, when I said we're a bank without being called a bank, is that we will be able to issue cards, prepaid, debit, and hopefully later on credit cards to the market, which you can use to sell. They are MasterCard approved, as you can see, and this is the design that has already been approved. So very soon we'll be opening it up for people to actually start to apply for these cards, and they can use them anywhere. There's lots of use cases, but I will be able to explain that later on. That's why I just wanted to try and introduce this thing to you. Now, to get to the issue at hand, which is access to funding by SMEs, a bit of background is important, because we have to locate the solution within what problem are we trying to solve, right? Now, South Africa, we all know, suffers from three problems: unemployment, inequality, and poverty. And all those things are interrelated, because any solution that we have to come up with has to able to deal with those things. We are aware that overall, the unemployment is 34.5% in the country, and it's growing. And this is interesting, that we have the dubious distinction of being the most unequal country in the world, where 10% of the population owns more than 80% of the wealth in the country. And this is very concerning, because approximately 55.5% of our people live below the upper poverty line of 992 rands, and this is a lot of people. We're talking close to 30 million people in this country. Now, how do we expect our country to really reach its true potential when more than half of the people are actually really being left out of participating in the economy? This is a crucial part, because unless you address that, you are not going to be able to address the real issue about economic growth in this country. Now, it is said, and this was a quote that we find from Boston Consulting Group, that South Africa is rated number 149th out of 162 countries in terms of its ability or inability to convert the wealth that this nation has to the social well-being of its people. That is something that we should be extremely embarrassed about, because we've got an embarrassment of riches, and we are unable to actually harness those riches and actually make them possible for our people. We seem to be comfortable with the few being rich and being serviced, and we seem to be comfortable with the concept of we are a first world country and a third world country. We seem to be comfortable with that. And that must come to an end. It just cannot be. That, and you can see it in the numbers, and this is why I had to put these numbers here. Before 2014, we were the largest economy in Africa. And we've regressed since. We have not been growing. In fact, there is a study that says the growth of our prime rate over this particular period was higher than the growth of the GDP of this country, which means we've been expecting overall negative growth. There is no way we are going to grow and develop as a country if we have statistics like these. And in the previous area, we were talking about 4IR and so forth. Very interesting, because if you look at the nature of the South African economy, it has changed quite substantially over the past. And every time we talk about a skills mismatch, let's understand, let's put it into context and understand why is there a skills mismatch. We talked about 34% of people unemployed. The country's economy, our GDP is now made of 73% services. In the past, the primary sectors of the economy, mining, agriculture, and land-based, those were the big contributors, and these were the entities which could employ a lot of our people. But now, they have reduced in terms of prominence, and we are surprised why we have so much unemployment. And we are surprised why is it that our people are not being, they are being left behind. Because the nature of our economy, the structure of our economy, has now moved more towards financialization than industrialization. Industrialization is the one that creates jobs for our people, the type of people we have. And this goes to the issue around our education system. Very crucial, because if we don't deal with that, we've got problems. So if we keep talking about we are going to train people for the fourth industrial revolution, and yet we are not dealing with today's people that are here, that have been left behind, because the policies that we have followed structurally changed the nature of our economy towards was leaving a whole lot of people behind. You can already see the mismatch and why that is a problem. Okay. Now, coming back to the issue of access to funding for SMEs, one of the critical issues that we are missing as a country is lack of patient capital for early stage businesses. We don't have that in this country. And even if you read whatever material that you read, they keep talking about, yeah, we are investing in startup businesses. But if you check startup for them, and I'll show you the curves in terms of what that means, they are talking about startups that are post-revenue and that are possibly on their way to profitability. When you talk about seed and pre-seed funding, which is the critical part where people are going to be able to allowed to be able to come up with ideas and test those ideas in the market and have investment, that doesn't exist in this country. And so most of the people, when they start their businesses, they start them with loans. We all talked about, in the other side, they talked about getting funding from banks. Banks give loans. They don't provide equity. And if they do provide equity, there was a time when they did do that and they stopped. But right now, banks provide loans, and that leads to short-term focus of business people. Because you don't have patient capital, you are looking at strategies that enable you to fund your loan immediately after. So you're not looking at long-term development, at long-term value creation. It's about creating enough to be able to pay that loan immediately. That is not a recipe for growing a business in this country. The other thing that we keep complaining about banks, and this is why some of us ended up forming Tafari, the truth of the matter is that banks in this country were not formed for broad-based participation. These institutions were actually built on financial models that were imported from outside, from advanced economies, and they were focused on high value, fewer transactions, or fewer companies. So by design, they were not meant for every single one of us, just as much as if you look at the apartheid structure, they will tell you in the past things used to work, but they used to work only for the minority, not for the majority. Now, once you get the majority in this infrastructure that was built for the minority, the infrastructure gets overwhelmed because it was not built with the majority in mind. This is exactly the same kind of problem that we are facing now, and it's unfortunate because the current government does not seem to be finding a way of breaking this logjam. We still continue with the spatial development of apartheid, we're still growing the townships as we want, we're not finding a way of breaking that logjam. Now, similarly, if you are not employed or you don't have a salary slip, the banks will hardly ever look at you. I mean, a simple example is that I run my own business. What I found very surprising is that the banks find it difficult to fund me as a business owner because they say I am risky, but they will find my employees that I'm paying because they've got a salary slip and a bank statement. This is weird. How is that possible? But this is, I mean, I'm talking, sounds weird, but this is my experience. I have, you know, it's crazy, but, and these are some of the compromises we have to break, because it doesn't make sense. I even asked that question. So, but if my employee comes with a pay, you'll, yes, we will. But what about me? I'm the one that's paying this guy. Oh, no, not you. How? But I'm also being paid. I'm an employee of this company. No, but you are riskier. This is crazy. It shouldn't be happening in this day, in this country, especially in the light of the kind of statistics I've just shown here. There is no will to be able to change the current situation of how things are. They're just carrying on as business as usual. It needs business unusual right now, but no. You, as a customer, must suit us as banks, not the other way around. Everywhere else, they will tell you that you need to understand the needs of your customers to be able to provide them with relevant situations. But our banks don't do that. They tell you, this is my criteria, you fit in or you're out. I don't care, because there's a few out there. Those few high net worth people fit my criteria. I make money out of them, I'm okay. So if we keep complaining about the banks, we won't be able to get to where we are wanting to go. Now, SMEs, by very nature, I'm sure you've heard that even as an SME, you are much easier to get a loan for consumption from a bank than for building a bank or a company. We all know that, okay? So we need to be able to deal with that thing there. I've spoken about the customer centricity of this. Oh, sorry, I thought you were saying time is up. Now, these are issues that I believe we need to address before we get to the available solutions that are there. And you'll understand why, unless we deal with these, those available solutions won't make sense. Or we still have a problem with them, even though they are there. It is always my belief, and in other advanced countries, SMMEs play a pivotal role in the development of the economies. And yet, in this country, it's almost as if we are anti-SMME. People are much more willing, our government in particular, likes to deal with big business. They are very happy with announcing multi-billion rand this, multi-billion rand that, and they don't create much jobs. It's few numbers of people, and yet we know that the job creators in this country are SMMEs. The vast majority of people are SMMEs, and yet our policy does not talk to that. As an example, and I haven't mentioned it here, as an example, this is an idea that I've had in my mind. Without negating the importance of grants, I'm just using that to illustrate the point. Our country spends almost 200 billion plus on social grants. What is the budget of the Department of Small Business? Is it anywhere near 10 billion? That budget tells you what is the focus of our government with regards. You'd rather, and it's very important that you help people and make sure that they get money, but equally so, you should be spending more money in SMMEs to make sure, because these are the people that are going to deal with that unemployment, not big companies. The SMMEs are the ones we need to be able to fund, and not just fund them through loans, but to fund them through equity. Now, how is that achievable? Change in mandates of pension funds is crucial. Our pension funds are so risky, risk averse. If you look in developed countries, pension funds actually put aside 20 to 25% of their funds to be deployed in non-listed vehicles. In South Africa, it's about 5%. Why is this? And yet we wonder why we're having this kind of growth problems and unemployment. Imagine a situation where PIC has got over 2 trillion in assets, in deployable assets. If PIC was to deploy 10% of that, that's 200 billion. It would match the, what do you call it? The grants that government is spending. If they were to spend 10% of those, not 25, I'm not talking 25 at this point, let's say 10% on SMEs, 200 billion. Can you imagine what that would do? Of course, assuming that the funds that are going out are going to be used for the purposes that they are being deployed for, you know? But having said that, that is what is needed, because that is where equity funding, which is so sorely lacking for SMEs, is going to come from. And there is somewhere in my presentation, I will tell you, they say that the funding gap for SMEs in this country is between 300 billion and 500 billion. Now, 200 billion of that can come from the PIC by just deploying 10% of this. Can you see what the impact of that can be? If that can happen, it's not out of, all they need to do is to change the mandate that they give the asset managers. Because all the asset managers will do, they will tell you, we cannot invest in small businesses because our mandates prevent us from doing so. They'd rather spend money on market, on focusing on people who don't need the money, not in the real economy, in the market. They will spend that. They will go buy shares in Edgar's, buy shares in Steinhoff, and they are happy with that. And imagine how much they have lost already now with Steinhoff and Edgar's. All that money, if it was used to fund SMEs in this country, can you imagine what that would have done? SMEs create jobs. We would be reducing our unemployment rate so drastically. I mean, isn't it embarrassing that a country like the United States has an unemployment rate of 5% or less, with 300 million people, 340 million people. That's the kind of unemployment rate they have. We've got 60, and we are sitting at 34% unemployment rate because we are not putting in place structures and policies that are pro-growth. We are following some kind of austerity measures which have never been shown to work anywhere, but for some reason we keep doing it, and we hope for a different result. If you look at the current financial regime, the banks will tell you one of the reasons why they did not invest or they did not come up with a 200 billion that the government had said we are guaranteeing and disbursed it. They will say to you there were restrictive regulatory measures in place that did not allow them to do this, right? That's what they will say. So the government also has a role to play in putting together an enabling environment to allow the funding to be able to be received by the SMMEs. And of course, these banks are enjoying a very comfortable environment because they are a monopoly, basically. We have put in place various competitive measures. Any of these banks, when they were formed, none of them needed to put aside 250 million rand of unencumbered capital. None of them. And yet, today, if you want to set up a bank, that's the minimum that you need. A proper bank, not a mutual or a cooperative bank or anything, a commercial bank, that's what you would need. So already they are putting up these barriers to entry, which they themselves never did have. So you have to ask yourself, in whose benefit is all of this? Okay, so this is where sometimes when you look at things like open banking and the new regimes that are coming in, it's very important because those allow for innovation and so forth that's happening. And of course, as we look at ways and means of funding SMMEs, we also have to look at financial literacy and business support programs. There's people who are not, they may be able to run their own businesses, but they are not au fait, and they fail when it comes to regulatory environment, or should I say, compliance environment. And this is one of the things that we at Tafari are looking to do. We want to go beyond financial services and put in place programs that will also allow for SMMEs to make themselves comply without it being onerous. Now, getting back to the sources of capital, I thought that I could mention a few of these. As I mentioned, equity funding, which is the most critical one that needs to happen. What I will do, because now the way this thing is structured is that all those DTI grants, there's a document there. If anybody needs that presentation or they need to get access to those grants, most of which are almost free, if they are in your environment, if you click on that link, it will bring all of them. Unfortunately, I can't point and change right now, but that's a very important document that you need to be able to look at. And those grants, some of them they pay up to 100%, some 80%, and they fund even things like software development, marketing, when you're starting a business and so forth. So there's a lot of these grants. The problem is what you need to do to access them. So it's not like they don't exist, they are there, but they have very restrictive requirements for them to be able, they might as well not be there for SMEs. And then you look at banks. Clearly, when you start looking at business loans, I mean, does it make sense that when you apply to a normal bank for a loan today, it takes a minimum of 2 weeks before they can finish that loan? Today. And yet, we've got these non-banking financial services institutions that can respond to you within 24 hours to 48 hours with a loan and a why. Why is the banks not being able to use the same reasons and the same logic to come one called Credit Proof? It's actually one of the SMMEs. It's in there. I saw it. They provide purchase order funding for up to 5 million. In some cases, they may go to about 100 million. It's one of the black-owned SMMEs. It's sitting right in here. So maybe after this, you guys can go and have a look at them. And of course, people like Lulaland and so forth, they are there to do the same thing. Vodacom, they've come up with this. I think they've got a similar backup. They're definitely not using any of the big banks because there's no way they could come up with that kind of fast turnaround strategy. This one, resultant finance. I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with that, but if you are in the business of, say, computers, and you are selling hardware, printers, and any of those things, and you bid for big national metro projects that are 5, 10, 20 million and above, these are the guys you have to go to. They would fund any asset-based project. If it is from government or from any big institutions, if you've got that purchase order, go to resultant. They compete with the standard banks of this world and any of those banks, and they beat them on the funding of this. And they can go to very big amounts. So have a look at these guys. The People's Fund, I'm sure some of you guys know about the People's Fund. It's a group of people that invest, like you and me, they invest money, and then that money is used to fund SMMEs that have got purchase orders, and they get very good returns on their investments. So and this is also one of those responses that our own people decided to take the initiative and do something to enable us to be able to access funding. Now also, part of this was also to actually make people aware of some of the different funding stages that people have to go through and when in their business cycle those funding stages are at. And normally what sort of amounts of monies people have to be looking at to be able to access these funds. So if you look at pre-seed, I think earlier there was a discussion, I think Mede, you were talking about, or someone was talking about availability of pre-seed funding. And you can always explain what pre-seed funding is, and this is the funding that you get to make sure that you build your product to a point that you can take it to market when it's an MVP or something like that. This is before it actually begins to generate any form of revenue, but it's something that is built to address a market need. So if you've got traction, even if you don't have some form of revenue, that always helps. And generally speaking, those pre-seed funds, I put it in dollars there, but you can multiply that by 17, you'll get a good sense of what sort of market, how much these funds usually do. Once you get to the seed funding, it gets a little bit complicated. Here, you need to have built now, remember from your pre-seed, you need to have built your prototype, you need to have at least got a few people that are going to market, that are using your product, that you can now say to them, okay guys, here am I now, I need money to get into the market, to build distribution, to build my team, to do marketing, and so forth. This is the kind of amount of monies that you build. Where do we get access to these in the country? I can tell you most of it, because I know, because I've been running around it trying to do this. It's very difficult to get pre-seed and seed marketing from other institutional investors. They don't even look at that. Most of the people that do this, how we funded Tafari. We funded Tafari by having a group of people like this. We have about 185 shareholders. And we raised money from these guys that we have to build the whole product ourselves and finish it and ready to launch it, which is why you can find it on the stores and you can be able to. We are in the process of raising more money to try and get us into the next stage of our business. And of course, if any of you guys are interested in this or wanting to become part of Tafari and become part of the owners of this bank, you are very welcome to talk to us. Then you've got the different stages. Sorry guys, it's a bit hot in here. These are the different types of stages. We all, when we start, bootstrapping, most of us start like that. You are employed, you are running a side business out of your own salary and trying to build that, hopefully to something where it becomes sustainable. Friends and family and angel investors. Now, this is, when you read these things, it's like this is a way of getting funding. But the reality of it is that because we as a people lack intergenerational wealth and assets, it's not that easy to go talk to your own people and get access to money to start an operation. White folks, most of them don't have that problem. Okay, but we do. And the financial system structure assumes that everybody is able to go to their friends and families to ask for money. They are like us, they don't have nothing, they are busy looking for jobs out there. So this doesn't make sense. But that's a very interesting question because there is a recent study which was done, and you guys, I would encourage you to look at it by the Competition Commission, particularly in the ICT industry, around the way black people are and black startups are excluded from the online markets, where especially most guys, white guys easily access these things, not a problem. But Rona, we've got a problem accessing some of these. Crowdfunding, we as Tafari, we started something like that. That's how we got to where we are, because we knew unless we pooled our resources in numbers, we're not going to get anywhere. Because individually we were very weak, but together, I believe we have proven that together we can do something that otherwise would not have been done. If I look at some of the black organizations that are here, I see that there's PIBCT and others. Guys, you mentioned that you've got 3,000 members. If each of those members was to put together 1,000 rand, whether it's every month or whatever else, imagine how much money you will pull together to be able to do something with this. If I look at the SMME chamber, you look at all of these guys, come together and you put something in the SA group. Individually, it's tough, but together. And if you don't do any of that, come to us. Come and be part of us. We're already there. Come and be part of us, and let's grow this cake. And this is how we build our own equity. Together, not individually. And then, of course, crowdfunding, there's the sites. You know, I've mentioned the Uprise, there's other crowdfunding sites in the US, Kickstarter, Jumpstart, and there's quite a few of those. They do require you to be able to do quite a number of things, but you do get, some of them are equity crowdfunding, and others are not even equity crowdfunding. They are people who just want to get some form of acknowledgement for participating in return for giving funds. So this is where also we can go in and attract some kind of funding that is non-dilutive in our businesses. And then, of course, we've got incubators. There's quite a few in this country. There's about 58 of them around the country. There's quite a list that you can get. If you go to this website that I've put in there, entrepreneur.com, and you look for the definitive list of South African business incubators, There's quite a big number of them there, and you can start to pull in if you think your business can, because incubators will provide some form of a structure, office, a bit of funding, a bit of marketing, a bit of mentoring for those that need it. And, you know, if I was talking what I was saying with regards to our own organizations, they could actually form incubators themselves to be able to do this. It can't just be others that are doing this, and we are not forming these things ourselves. We have to create them ourselves. And then there's accelerators, and one of them is this one called the IDF Capital. Yeah, I'm finishing off. IDF Capital, which is called I'm In Accelerator. So we need to look at that. And then, of course, there's also a whole list of accelerators that you can find on siliconcape.com. And then there's the pitching competitions, if you want. I have already spoken about the seed rounds, the Series A, Series B, Series D. These are the ones that you get when you're really now running and you're starting to make money and you start to grow your business. You'll be able to get those. And this is the financial life cycle of them. You can see at the beginning it's supposed to be high risk. The money is low, but the risk is high. And then over time, it changes. And similarly here, and this one tells you which are the type of people that you can engage with at different stages of fundraising. Conclusion, that's what I said, I'm almost done. Okay, so in conclusion, if we look at the value that the SMMEs actually bring to this country, 60% of private sector jobs come from SMMEs, and they contribute 40% of the economy. And yet, we are not a priority as a sector for government. That does not make sense. And we've talked about the funding gap. Look at the amounts of money that SMMEs get directly from government, 6%, from the private sector, 40%, 9%. And I remember I spoke to Nomso earlier that all the big listed companies are supposed to have 3% of their profits put aside, and it's almost, 80 billion? That's just sitting there. Who's accessing that? Who's getting it? These are things that we need to be able to look into and see. So, lastly, if I say that given the role that SMMEs actually create or play in this country in terms of job creation, why are we not focusing all our efforts in developing and growing these SMMEs? Why are we not doing that? It really doesn't make sense. They should be at the heart and at the center of our economic policy, but it's not. And of course, we spoke about changing of the mandates of the pension funds. That is crucial. Until we do that, we will not be able to get the necessary funds for equity investment in this country. Thank you.
A round of applause for Dr. Thabo for that. We appreciate the insights and the work of Tafari Capital. And I think you set such a great layout for the next session we're going to have. You are in the Innovation and SME track 2. And this is where there is, conceptual debates as well as ideas that we can speak on so that we are able to have SMMEs, thriving in our economy. I am going to call my panelists to the stage, and for now, the questions to the presentation will not be done. But what I would like from Dr. Thabo is to share this presentation to SETA so that it's distributed to all the delegates that are here, if there's permission for that. And the deputy chair of the SETA board is here, so Dr. Vuma will also pass that. And she's looking at me like, what? But colleagues, that information, and information is quite important for entrepreneurs, that information will be shared, and I think his details are there so that we are able to engage with him and really find ways of raising capital. So I'm going to call on the floor. This session is one of the session that I really wish the exhibitors can come in so that we can have one unison mind as entrepreneurs and small business owners, to actually put forth to CETA on how they can really be empowered to thrive in our economy. So I'm going to call the panelists, and I'll start with Mr. Mtuduzelo Mulomo. If you may kindly come on stage. Panelist number one. There we go. And colleagues, this is a ICT professional whose experience spans for 15 years, and he has worked in both public and private sector, and has developed an e-learning platform. I think in the brink of the COVID pandemic, we saw the usage of e-learning platforms that are required for people who are working at home and staying at home and studying at home. However, most of the e-learning platforms that are being consumed are from international OTTs. And he has developed such a national intellectual property database called KIM, and he's going to tell us about that as soon as other panelists come in. And we're going to be followed by Dr. Leon Rolls, who happens to be the chairperson of the PBICT, and this is also a commissioner in the Presidential 4IR, who happens also to be driving quite incredible business in the province where we are being hosted with GovTech. And I think what's important in this session is these are people that have, big profiles, and I'm just going to pick from their most active ones that they do day to day, that I know for a fact that when they start doing their work, it brings so much impact. And as we have heard even from the previous sessions, PBICT has incredible activities. One of the best one that I'm so proud of is the STEMI, which really develops the huge, incredible tech and science pool that we need in the country as we are in the fourth industrial revolution era. And Mr. Loyiso Kega will be coming also on stage. He is the managing director of the National ICT SMME Chamber. And as I've mentioned, colleagues, these are big profiles. Look, this is a profile. These are the amount of work that these guys do. And as an MD of the National ICT Chamber, he also drives quite a lot of initiatives in the country regarding ICT implementation, and also has some of the subsidiaries of the chamber, which is Samdra, driving the mobile repairs training, as well as leapfrogging some of the unemployed youth to uptake these technical skills. And colleagues, these members, some of them, they sit in boards. So as I briefed them in the session, that this will be a session where we will not be mincing anything. But I mean, if you know about them, we have seen, they really don't mince anything. So if there might be some, in fact, we don't even need mute. We are all going to hear what leaders have to say. But we're discussing today innovation and SMME. And my colleague, Dr. Tabo, mentioned number one, the government spending. If you follow the website of National Treasury, quarterly, they release the Vulindlela report, which will just span out on how government spends and also where most of our money goes into regarding procurement. So the 2019-2020 report said that annually government spent close to 1.97 trillion. 938 billion has gone into big business. So they paint quite a great picture of where this money goes. And you'll be surprised, as Tabot has said, the first thing that we do is we fix income. Secondly, we give people grants. It goes to social grants. And thirdly, our biggest spenders are in education. So we're going to discuss us in this session on how really does this have an output. And since we're mentioning innovation, South Africa currently sits at number 60 in the 131 global economies in the Global Innovation Index. And that means we do have a capacity to, build and create innovation. But the output is so minimal, it's not showing. And we've seen that during the COVID pandemic, where quite a number of innovative solutions came through. And we saw how people were pitching how you can easily access your work, on how you can easily deploy fiber or Wi-Fi so that people have connectivity. But all of that innovation, does it really materialize? So I'm going to give my panelists quite a number of minutes so that they can paint a picture for us and also do tap into the challenges and also speak on the solutions. And I do want to also lay a foundation on how we can really ensure we have an enabling policy environment so that you and me as entrepreneurs, we thrive and we can proudly have South Africa in the top 10 where the world globally, WEF does record countries that produce, the biggest economies are produced by SMMEs. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Mlomo, and really my question for you is to really tell the audience on how in the past 15 years you have managed to transition into different spheres, and now you have a business, and in that business there's a lot of IP in it, and I want us to take us through your innovation journey, and also how as a business owner you are actually receiving support in our environment and how that can be made possible. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone. My colleagues, Mr. Rolls, Loiso, pleasure to engage again. I think the important learning experience for me around running a business over time is that over and above everything, the cruel truth and reality is we are operating in a capitalist world. We operate in markets, and those markets are structured in whatever fashion they are. And in many respects, we need to respond to that structuring, and we need to be agile. So the first thing that is important to note is that there are very strong, shall we say, demand side issues that we focused on. Okay? And when we speak about the demand side issues from a policy perspective, the one thing that we are trying to appeal to policymakers and government around is that there's absolutely nothing wrong with South African products. And I'm a software guy. We build software. We want to sell our software. But from a policy side, you find a government with very progressive ideas, but the implementation lacks in the sense that local products are not being consumed sufficiently by government. The issue around localization solves a lot of issues that relate to the capacity to incubate ideas and commercialize those. So for us, we want to be good software developers. We want to build cutting-edge solutions, but we need the demand side to be addressed where, for example, the South African ERP landscape at a government level has for a very long time been pushing the IFMS project that looked to implement very, very high volumes of Oracle licensing, SAP licensing. And yet, historically, we have a company like BCX that has built a very strong ERP solution. That ERP solution has the capacity to take South African solutions to the international market and build a footprint for us. Now, if government is not consuming at that scale local products, then we've got a huge problem. So policy needs to come through that is not throwing money at a horse that has got no legs. You've got to give the horse a chance in the race and then throw money at it, if you get what I mean. So our focus has been on building good solutions. We hope that government receives our message and gives us the opportunity to get into the race by consuming our products. So the change in the South African software landscape for us is brought about by localization. Without localization, you don't have the impetus to push innovation forward. And again, and the reason why I say localization is because we are not looking for handouts. We want to compete, okay? But government needs to take a policy position where they say we will consume local. We will build a South African ERP solution for government, and we will support the companies that build it. Without that, we haven't got legs. So we need to be competitive. We need to address the demand side of things from a South African perspective. So localization important. I think the other issues that we also are looking at, just to respond to your question more completely, are the fact that from a software perspective, you have choices. You can either be a consultant or you can own a product. And we've taken a decision to build products in which we house our intellectual property. The value of our business sits in our software. We're not looking to sell bodies and sell hours of consulting. It works. You can live like that, but you don't build wealth that way. So we've got to build solutions. We've got to be supported by government to build those solutions, and that's the only way we build wealth, and that's the only way we then take products to the broader community and continent and around the world. So products, products, products for us. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you so much, Mr. Mlomo. I think you mentioned quite great things in there, and which really speaks on how our, the profile of the country is really on being a technology colony, and we sit on consumption in this day and age. Notwithstanding the fact that we do have innovators in the country. The first day of GovTech, we had a pitching session, and one would wonder if all that information of the SMMEs that were there, how will the progress go further? So it's quite important for us to really have an end in mind so that we are able to really place these solutions that these innovators have built. And I think from your perspective, with the e-learning platform that your company builds, is it somehow being consumed in the education sector, or is it more likely to be consumed in the big business or any business sector?
Yeah, so we're focused on the private sector primarily. So we've got 46,000 accredited training providers across all the SETAs. So if we're able to get 5-10% of that market on a subscription monthly basis, that works beautifully because then we have good cash flows being generated out of that. But ultimately, what we're looking to do is to scale the product in such a way, and we look at South Africa as almost an incubation center for any global or Pan-Africanist adventure we decide to go on. South Africa is a market, but our scale sometimes requires that in order to become a power player in the software game, you really, really need to scale outside of our borders. So South Africa will allow us to build that prototype, if you want to call it that, and then understand what the international experience would look like and begin to scale that. So it's subscription-based for now. We've also looked at the TVET colleges. I think we've submitted in the last month, there have been 6 large tenders from the TVET colleges we've responded to. So that market, because of the COVID issue, is growing from an e-learning perspective. So you've got the TVET colleges. And then you've got the SETAs, the skills authorities themselves, who are looking to understand how they're spending their money. So there are a lot of money is being spent by the SETAs on learnerships, bursaries, etc. But if you look at it from a cascading perspective, from a national viewpoint down to a, say, regional viewpoint, you need to be able to consolidate that data. You need to be able to consolidate processes that are used to administer training. You need to be able to create standardization so that you're developing quality outputs. So we're looking at the SETAs. And then ultimately, we think the universities are there as a potential client, but that's for the longer term. The National Intellectual Property Database that we built for Department of Science and Innovation is currently running across all the universities in the country. The CSIR uses it, the ARC uses it, and essentially all the intellectual property, copyrights, patents, etc., that are created out of state-funded research are managed on that platform. So we understand education, we understand the importance of intellectual property, and again, we look to government to water the seed so it can grow. Thank you.
Thank you for those insights. So I want to move on to you, Mr. Giga, to really paint a picture for us regarding innovation. South Africa has 2.5 million SMMEs. And I read a report that in the past 2 years of the pandemic, about 41,000 SMMEs were added in. And the age group within that, it's between 35 and 55. And we know there are a lot of jobs that were shared. So people see building up a business as a way to life and also as a way to actually have a survival and also to really implement their business ideas. So my question is, the National ICT SMME Chamber, PBICT is one of the biggest advocacy and lobbyist group to really push for policy and push for SMME enrichment and also to ensure there is a great working or great relationships between private and public and SMMEs. I want to look at what I mentioned regarding innovation being invested in, but the output is so little, yet we have so many SMEs that can actually drive the GDP of this country and solve our unemployment problems. So just take us through that.
No, thank you, Nomso. I read a book last week called Verwoed. That's the name of the book. There's one thing that just struck me in the book, in what he says in one of the meetings he has with his colleagues. He says, talking about apartheid, he says he will design a system such that no future government, even if that government is the government of the natives, will be able to untangle it. It goes into details that this system will be built on institutions, and what comes to mind is the institutions of the bank. And I will, when I speak, you will see why that is important. Because if we are to strengthen an ecosystem for innovation, especially in a country like South Africa, especially bringing in SMMEs. These SMMEs are basically these people that this system that we still live under, that by now even our own government seems to unintentionally perpetuate, ensures that this does not happen. Let me just give a bit of a background. We are not in any way, also lacking in understanding of what needs to be done to create a system of innovation or an ecosystem of innovation that will thrive. For example, we've got the 1919 Science and Technology and Innovation White Paper, which has 4 pillars that it aspires to achieve. One of them is that we need to develop an enabling environment for innovation. We need to develop a local ecosystems for innovation. It talks about strengthening the national system of innovation, just that word to explain it a bit. It's a word used globally, which is basically all the ecosystem structure and functions that support the country for innovation purposes. But what it does, it says we should the emphasis should be put on social, grassroots innovation, and SMEs. The paper puts itself as the center for South African development because it recognizes that in order for South Africa to move forward, it needs to embrace innovation. And the center, and it puts the SMEs as a center. Now, there are a lot of models, there are a lot of actors, and if we can just focus on the National System of Innovation, which is basically a measure of how good or how bad a country or the systems, a measure of the systems in the country, how good or how bad they will do in terms of their innovation ecosystems. And usually, if you look at all the models around the NSI, and I'll take the simple one, which is a triple helix model, it has 3 players. One of those players is industry. And in all the countries where, by industry I mean everybody, I'll zoom into SMEs, in all the countries where those countries do well in terms of the innovation index and innovation and coming up with things, industry invests a lot of money into R&D. They don't simply do what most of our companies, especially in the IT sector, most of them, not all of them, but most of them, especially the big ones, they do not simply consume technology from other countries and resell. That's what mainly our IT integrators and IT companies do. The second actor in this is the research academia and research institutions, because really those are the centers of knowledge, and they would produce the research that is needed to create innovation systems. And you've got then government, which is supposed to play a pivotal role in coordinating the other two and ensuring that there's an environment. And I think I want to focus on really what government does. And I sit in a number of boards, and a lot of other colleagues here who sit in a number of boards. And whether it's government as national government in terms of policy, this is one of their policy. Whether it's funding institutions of government, whether it's the procurement policies, and. The question that we ask is that, is our government doing what it's supposed to do to support innovation? The answer is simply not really. There are pockets there and there that do try to drive this, but the evidence out there is that government is not doing its role or doing its ultimate role in ensuring that it does this thing of coordinating between all the other role players and ensuring that it puts an environment. Let me put it in a way of an example. The first colleague they spoke about a system that's developed in this ERP system. It's just software. If you look at Oracle, it's really software. With the universities that we have and all the research institutions that we have, there is no reason that government cannot decide that we will develop an ERP system. It can take an already existing one and push it. That's what China has done with Huawei. That's what France has done with the likes of Uber. They support a particular innovation in their country internally first, and they make sure that it moves outwards. We're not going to go far if we are going to talk about that one lab and that one lab. That's not the role of government. Government needs to act at a macro level so that there's scale, so that there's impact. If we're going to go and build one lab then and go and celebrate because of build a lab with 21 people, we're not going to go far, because that's not the role of government. That's just 21 people. Government needs to put a system that works for everybody, so that if any young person or any person can develop a software or a system or any form of innovation, there is a space for that innovation to compete nationally, but not only nationally, to be supported to compete globally. Because countries that take innovation seriously and take their economic growth and job situation in their countries do that. They support innovation. And that's really the big role that I'm not seeing happening. We have, for instance, at MICTC have decided that for our LMS system, which is a learner management system, which is a core of our system, we're not going to go and tender. We're going to ask a university to develop it for us. It's currently under development. And once that's done, the chances are we're going to get some SME to commercialize that and take it elsewhere. So even within the policy environment that we have, there's enough for boards, for government to be able to do what needs to be done. The issue where I find is simply the will to get things to be done, for me, seems to be a problem. Yes, you can improve on the policy environment. Yes, you can improve on the laws in such that this can be done more efficiently. But already with what we have, I find that we're not doing enough. Thirdly, we need to have an easy way of taking research or IP from universities or from the likes of CSIR in terms of the IP to commercialization by SMEs. And whether that's by licensing, whether that's simply giving this IP to SMEs, coupled with funding, coupled with the procurement side, meaning government needs to be the first adopter of the technology from these SMEs. I think I'll leave it there for now. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kika. Dr. Rose, I'm going to come to you, and the various roles you play in the industry, I mean, from grassroots to also in the public sector, you have insights regarding how policy has failed to really enable the environment. Also, I know your perspectives regarding now how the theory of change can be implemented. We've seen in the past year where policies that were going to bring such a huge change for businesses in the ICT telecoms sector, and how that policy quickly changed, and it enabled certain part of the market structure and also pushed aside a certain part. So there is now a number of years where we're going to see the impact of this. And I mean, the objectives of the PBICT is to push for ownership, push for wealth generation, and also push for skills development so that we have entrepreneurs that are able to manage their businesses. So I want us to give us insights currently on the status quo of how the business sector is looking like, and also the theory of change. And I think the theory of change, I'll put it across all the panelists, but also the theory of change on how we can really get to the apex of development, where we said this is now an ideal situation for South African SMMEs. Take it away.
No, thank you very much, Nomsa, and good afternoon to everyone. You know, I'm sitting here and from yesterday when I came to GovTech, actually from when I picked up my tag, people have been talking about, PBICT. PBICT is a headache. So this year we thought that we're going to bring our ladies. Because I apologize on their behalf. No, I thought they're going to be soft. So now I have to play the role of being soft. You see, for the first time, going to play the role of being very soft. You know the biggest problem that you have, if you have to sit in this room right now, I'm very intimidated by this blue and white in my back. It's like eating my progressive mantra or my energy. It's really sucking. And I feel sorry for progressive people that actually work for CETA. You'll never be progressive working for an organization where its logos and colors are blue and white. They're not progressive, they're not Pan-African, there's nothing about it. That's why we have the situation where it is now. So the first change that needs to happen, we need to start being progressive. We need to stop dancing around and trying to beg for transformation. Transformation is not for white people. Transformation is for Africans. I once attended a meeting, I found myself, I don't know how, attending a meeting of the BEE sector, ICT BEE sector. I asked a simple question. Why do we have a white man as an acting CEO of the sector? The guy resigned. I don't know what happened. It's not because of me or that question. We need to stop that immediately. Now, on the left-hand side, those seats are all empty. On the right-hand side, they're half empty. Now, if you are having a GovTech and you are calling me to say, here, we are coming to represent SMMEs, where are those people? Why are they not here? You're in a hosting province that spends close to 250 million to CETA. Why is that province not here? Why is it that Setumo, my SMME over there, I met him in 2017 at the ITU. He's been pushing that innovation of his, attending every competition. He even went overseas to compete. But today he's competing with Huawei. Today he's competing with Vodacom subsidiaries. The change is happening in the wrong direction. It's not happening in the right direction where it's headed to be. If you have to look at the import versus export of South Africa, the gap is 94 billion. That's the deficit. It's 94 billion of rands that we are giving to them. The very same Huawei that are out there that have big build stands and spent a lot of money, and tomorrow they're going to be submitting new invoices for new technologies that you're not even going to use in government. Why are we still using Windows, Microsoft operating system, when we have Linux? Why are we still using Microsoft Office when we have Open Office? Innovation will never happen in this country until such time that we get rid of those things and start using Linux and get the SMMEs to start developing those solutions. I do not agree with BCX developing an ERP solution that must be used in government. I agree with SMMEs, our SMMEs, developing that solution and implementing it. If you look at M-Score, what happened with M-Score? White companies that built the M-Score application, they charged each and every municipality 50 million to build one application once at a cost of 50 million. You're a developer. I'm a developer. At 50 million, you can develop an entire ERP for one municipality. They charge that 50 million 256 times. Why do we allow this as government? Until we change and we transform to the right direction. Look at what happened with the spectrum. Now we go out and we market and we sell the spectrum. But before we sell the spectrum, what does government do? For 2 years, you give your MTN and your Vodacom spectrum to operate for free. Go and look at the ICASA report of last year. It will tell you that during that period, the revenue increased in the telecoms by 16 million, if not 15 million. But we go and sell the spectrum to them as a collective for 12 million, or whatever it was. Billions. For billion, sorry. No, we don't make a billion rand, so I'm scared to say that number. So thank you for that. But we go and clap hands and we put shoulder back, oh, we've made so much money. We've just given that spectrum for free. Go and look at the same spectrum that was given, not even sold, that was given to them. Go and look at the United States and Israel and everywhere else, the same spectrum. It went for $250 billion. And these are the kind of mediocre things that we do. Now, government spends 15.1 billion per annum on ICT spend. I can guarantee you that if CETA has to call for an investigation, you will find that not even 5, maybe even 4 of white companies are dominating that majority spend. And it's happening every year. You go and go back to the establishment of CETA. Go and look and see who is heading and who makes the decisions at CETA on who should be appointed to do whatever work. Now, you will remember that in GovTech, 2017, 2018, there were serious resolutions that were taken. We made serious recommendations. Today, those recommendations are not implemented. All you do every time when it comes to GovTech, now you've been dictated. As government, as CETA, and as everyone else, you've been dictated by those people with big stands out there. And they have said to you, go to Africa. You have not fixed South Africa, but your whole theme is about you digitizing Africa. You cannot do that. Don't embarrass yourself. We haven't digitized. We are failing to have a proper system here. We don't even have an IFMS as government. We don't even have a proper Home Affairs system. Have you seen that system? There's a tender they took out. When they looked at on the databases to say the amount of space that they had, you say, oh my God, what does this mean? Do we even have a proper Home Affairs system? These are realities. The change needs to happen in the right way. But why is the change happening in the wrong way? We appoint wrong people to sit on boards. We appoint wrong people to head ICT. We appoint wrong people to head state-owned entities. And when they mess up, we move them, we put another wrong person to make a wrong decision. We are doing injustice to the people and we forget what we are here for. You know, every time, DP, when we attend these things, I always tell you this. What do those people know about SMMEs? You're not even SMME, but you want to tell me about SMMEs. I have 3,000 SMMEs. That's just my SMMEs alone, by the way. Combined with my professionals and my students. No, Pala, you'll correct me. I think the last time we checked, before we went to conferences, about 4,000, we're going to 5,000 now. That's the people we have now. When we stand in these forums, I'm not talking like this. It's not me. I'm all right. I promise you, I'm all right with what I do. I'm all right with the money I'm making. Every day I have to wake up in the morning, I have to deal with 5,000 people complaining every day. Then you say I'm angry. I'm not angry. I'm voicing out from the mandate of the people that are standing behind me. When you invite PBICT to come onto the stand, you're inviting 5,000 problems. Why do we have these CEDAs and these CFAs and all these people that's supposed to give us funding? Those things are useless. They don't work. And I say they're useless because they are of less use to me. Right now, we are sitting with opportunities, we're sitting with innovations, we're sitting with projects that can assist government and create the jobs that the doctor was talking about. But those useless funding agencies, or whatever you want to call them, South Africa, we like having fancy terms and fancy things for titles, for things that don't work for us. Go and ask for funding, like the doc said. Beautiful innovations like this. Sidoma, from 2017, we've been trying to get funding. It doesn't happen. Now what you do is you go to government, and we asked this, if you remember PBICT, we asked this to Minister Ukwel. We said, Minister, don't come and tell us that if I have made a cell phone or if I've innovated something, don't tell me to go look for market. No. You as government must be my first market. These transversal tenders that are full day in SETA don't work. You go to a small municipality and they want connectivity, NOMSO. And that municipality's budget per month is 2,500 Rand on a simple connectivity. Submitting in the tender is Vodacom. Hi, Mabo. Kwakhala nyonin. It is wrong. It is very wrong. Now, if I have to just ask a rhetoric question, I have a lot of SMMEs that have been meeting here. Some are in branding and some are doing great jobs. I've done great jobs with them. When 2010 was there, you know, the guys are there. They know how to do everything that is here. We ask this question that we ask in every gathering like this or conference like this. Who did the branding? Is it an African branding company? Who did this tag, this registration? I know I have people that can do this. Then we are told by the very same people that are supposed to be the vehicles of transformation, I do not find now SMMEs when you need them. I have 3,000 of them. I can give you the list. If you have to go to the stand of Zedna, they will tell you that when they had an initiative of that program, they wanted to have a room full of 100 SMMEs. We coordinated and we facilitated that, we made sure it was full. When it came to ITU with that training, they wanted the room to be, we filled that room. So when you're supposed to give SMMEs an opportunity, you don't know where to find them. But where you're having a function like this, or you have something that is going to make you look good as if you're doing a great job on SMMEs, you can find those SMMEs to come and do window dressing. We are not impressed by what happens. So the change is happening and it's happening wrong. What does that tell you? It means that the people that are driving the change are doing it wrong. Now, I was told that I must start being careful when I speak in these things here. But I think I'm not going to do that. So you see, there's this company called Broadband Infraco. Now, SETA, if you drop your arrogance and you humble yourself, ube nobuntu, don't think like this blue and white. Start thinking progressive. Go and sit down with Broadband Infraco and say, please help us. How do you do it? How do you empower How do you empower SMMEs? Those of you that are in the space of telecoms, you will see that Broadband Infraco released a tender, and it says 100% black, 50% woman-owned, 50% youth-owned. That's progressive, that. Now, if they can do it, why is everyone else scared to do it? It's within the same government, it's within the same legislation, it's within the same of everything. The SMMEs that are creating jobs and the SMMEs that have a potential of creating jobs are not the white-owned SMMEs, are not the Indian-owned SMMEs. It's the Black African-owned SMMEs. Because I will not go and look for someone Mhlanga to come and do my work for me. Ngizohamba ngiye emakhaya eMondlo. And when ngifika ekhaya eMondlo, I will find these young kids and I will bring them to come work for me. And I'm not talking about something that is a dream. I'm talking about something that is happening, something that we've agreed as PBICT. That is what we do. Hamba buyele ekhaya. Take one. I've got 3 boys in Nyanyata, bebelusa imbuzi laphan. Those boys are climbing 10 towers today. I've got boys from Elamonte, and I've got young ladies that are from Guatalus. Today they are climbing towers, they are lining radios. Today they're telecoms, today they're running my knock. And you can come any day and look at it. Now go to Eastern Cape, to Felix, you'll find the same. Go to Welcome, you'll find the same. Go to Larry in Free State, you'll find the same. Go everywhere. Because that is where the change is supposed to happen, Noms. If we are changing and we're still thinking that we are going to change by being apologetic, by being diplomatic, by dancing around transformation and being afraid to say that transformation is for Africans in South Africa, we are not going to change. As long as government wait, we are still having the people abathi mebeye esikolweni bayokwenza i-public administration, and those people are running government, and you think you're going to change? It's 20 years now they've been running it. Pencil pushers. You're going to have a problem. You're not going to change anything until we face those realities. Now, lastly, Noms, look at our parliament. I want all of you, in your minds, to look at the parliament. Look at it. It's sitting there. You got 4IR. Look at 4IR. I want you to look at what's happening in Dubai. Look at the people that are making serious advancement when it comes to 4IR. Ne? Come back and look at the parliament. Look at Dubai. Look at parliament. Age is a problem. Ne? Thank you very much.
Commissioner Leon, you know, we discussed something before we started, but I want to get to the theory of change, Mr. Molomo. And Mr. Instead of having this exothermic reaction, is actually going backwards. Those that have been enriched already are getting more enriched. Perhaps maybe there's a loop where these are happening. But now there is a need for championing. So I think from your perspective, running a business and being able to really build it from scratch, where do you see that championing happening from?
Look, I think the challenges we face, and earlier on I said, look, the reality of the matter is, we're in a capitalist society. So that structural reality is there, and we've got to be agile enough to navigate around it. I think we also don't want to underestimate the shall I say, the challenges that arise from our history. So when Dr. Rawls is saying we've got an aged parliament, that is a function of our liberation. Those are the people who liberated us. They are there, and only time will deal with that problem. The question is, what do we do in the intervening period, you know? And one of the issues that really needs to be addressed is, and again, I speak from an IT perspective, is the fact that we're fighting sometimes the wrong battle, I believe. We, as previously disadvantaged or Black people, do not have the technical ownership of our economy. Okay? So, as a starting point, when I go to, say, Standard Bank to try and do a deal, we may have executive sponsorship that says to middle management, talk to this man and see how you can work with him. But when I go to middle management, there are no Black people there. Those technical decisions that drive technology, architecture decisions are not in our hands. So sometimes I feel maybe we're fighting the wrong battle. Maybe we need to win it at the middle level and then go the executive. I know it sounds a bit weird, but if we're able to have that technical ownership of that business, it equates to the technical ownership of our economy. And that for me is a huge problem. So we've got to build capacity. So what's the challenge now? If you look at the current curricula, for example, that MICT is dealing with, and again, I say this with a bit of caution, the OEMs that dominate the ICT market have certain certifications. And I give an example of a friend of ours who 6 years ago was unemployed and went on to study an Oracle certification. And, I think it took a year or 6 months, I can't remember, but shortly thereafter, this young fellow was employed. And now he's working, I think he's billing his time out 6 years later, 850, 900 Rand an hour, because he has a skill. So we've got to reconcile perhaps what we think is a marketable skill with what we're giving our youngsters. Okay? I don't see any harm in getting all that MICT money and saying we are going to produce 200 Oracle certified engineers. Teach them Java, give them Oracle certificates. It's far more enriching than the stuff we're giving them now. Those kids come out of these learnerships. I take some of them. We interviewed 300 learners and we ended up with 5. That's the level or the quality of the output from the SETA. So we've got to look at technical ownership. We've got to look at how we empower our kids with the tools, because every single entrepreneur out there starts off as a techie. Everybody starts off doing something. But the question is, how well do you do it? Because you, again, in a competitive world, you're in a capitalist world, and unfortunately, you need to be strong to survive. That's the reality. But you can't do that with the right skill sets. So for me, the ideal situation is to focus perhaps a little bit more on middle management, technical ownership. Yes, let the politicians do the executive stuff. That's the stuff they do. They make noise about it. We're not going anywhere. We know that. And we hope that perhaps with time, we realize that our kids need the skills. Let's get them strong so that as time passes, as Parliament grows younger, we have the right people with the right skills. And so skills, again, policy, and let's focus on the right fight, I think, for me. Thank you.
I like that. Let's focus on the right fight. And I think the people that are now in the board of SETA, I know are people that are able to see the requirements for transformation. And the champion currently in the ICT industry, it's a young minister. But I want us to really point out, Mr. Giga, where the leakages are. I mentioned earlier that South Africa, our government spent, public government spent 1.97 trillion. First of all, it goes into our debt, it goes to ESCOM, it goes to education. Those are the biggest spenders. And Mr. Mulomo, you really laying it out that what's critical currently is skills development. Because really, the effects of globalization, we cannot stop them. The structure of the market, we cannot stop it. But now, how do we ensure that with the institutions or departments that we can have a say in, they are able to actually uptake what comes from the SMMEs and are implementing it? So this is really like a policy position. And I know that the DG of DSBD will be coming later on just to really present about enabling policy environment. But now this is a policy position. We've seen how policy have failed, policies that had a contribution from SMMEs and were never implemented. We have seen a change on those policies that are coming up now. But I want us to really point out and say, you know what, ladies and gentlemen, this is the leak.
Thank you, Nomso. I think I'll tie it back to an earlier comment that I made about Fairvoet. I think our leaders, both at the level of parliament, in terms of your legislatures, and in the boards, including the executives, need to realize that what they are doing now, they are actually the agents of apartheid. It's no longer apartheid. So when the country was given to majority rule, a Fairvoet deliberately set up the system in such a way that we will continue implementing apartheid ourselves. I'm going to declare, there was something said about BBI, declaration. I'm also a board member at BBI, and I see one of my procurement people is here sitting there at the back. One of the first things I did in my first meeting, the target for Black Economic Empowerment level was level 4. And that's a state-owned institution. I got into the board and said, no, this cannot work. This cannot work. We can't sit as BBI and say we are happy with targeting level 4B1. Same thing at MICT SETA also. I sit in that board. The chair is here in front. We said we will not accept anything other than PE level 1. We are a state-owned institution. Now, I don't know previously how was those things allowed. The second thing at BBI that we had, there was a report that last year we assisted 3 SMMEs. And that was okay because that was the target for the CFO. But where is all the other procurement goes to? Again, we said, no, stops now, immediately in that meeting. So, Nomso, the issue is people. I once said in a meeting at MICT SETA that the issue, the way we do procurement is such that it's anti-innovation. And the chair corrected me to say, no, Luis. Yes, you can improve on it, but with the tools that you have, you are able to do certain things, and we are failing to do that. Whether you're talking about SETA, whether you're talking about these SETAs, the issue is that the people that are there are failing to do, whether they're doing it deliberately or apartheid got into such in their heads such that they don't realize that they are now perpetuating what was designed to make sure that it keeps the majority of South Africans where they are. But the sad thing is that very same system is anti-innovation. Because in a country where the majority of your people are kept in such a way that they cannot progress or move forward, it also means that the sort of innovation will be limited to a very few, and it will not scale enough to take the country out of the doldrums, meaning creating jobs and growing in terms of economic growth. And I'm not sure, looking at Parliament, I'm not sure, and looking at our younger leaders, I'm not sure they're not going to, because their behavior is no different from the previous generation. They've also seemed to have consumed the behavior of the older generation. So unless we do something about how we think and how we do things, I don't foresee that simply by replacing the older generation with a younger ones, and I'm looking at the younger politicians that I know, I don't see any difference. So I think enough of us who can see what is going wrong in wherever we are, we need to start being the change that we want to see in the decisions that we make, and call them out, those that want to continue to be agents of apartheid, like the spectrum issue that Leon was talking about. We had a very progressive policy of the WOAN, which would have given ownership to SMME-based companies to previously disadvantaged people, and overnight, we simply just wiped out that policy. You know, for me, that's again perpetuating the very same policy that says black people are okay as long as they operate there, not at the level of ownership. Ownership is reserved for certain people. So for me, it's exactly that. It's the policy is there. There's lots within the instruments to get things done. And the experience I've seen so far, even if you change policy, the people themselves, simply abort or, and I'm using that word, or are being incentivized in one way or the other to continue perpetuating what apartheid wanted designed for the majority of the people in the country.
Thanks for those insights. And this will be my last, forgot to mention that. So, Mr. Mulomo, you mentioned that there's quite a huge need to ensure we inject the technical skills development required, not only in assist localization, but also we can also outdo the globalization that we're facing in the country. Mr. Kiha, you mentioned there's a need for a paradigm shift, starting from decision making to actually the people within supply chain policies. And Dr. Rawls, lastly, in this whole coordination we've mentioned, we know that we have a weakened executive, if you can put it like that is unable to implement transformation. So now we've seen the leakage. Now, in order now to undo that, what is it that, once again, the SMME ecosystem needs to do in order to be the drive of that change?
Yeah, no, thank you, Nomso, for. No, I think that if you look at the environment that SMME is forced to operate in this country, it's poison, absolute poison. Now, in the ICT sector, obviously, when we look at change in the ICT, we look at SETA. Unfortunately, SETA will take the brunt. You go to municipalities, they will tell you you must be on a SETA database before you get some job. We say, where's that SETA database? We go to SETA, they said we must be on your database. SETA says, I have no database. Because that's one of the things that they have done, to make it look as if they have some databases and they are the it and be it all of. You with me? Now, SETA is just a glorified business development unit for all these big companies that are there outside. In the last ITU, in the last GovTech that we had, we came up with a very good program. We called it the Industry Transformation Unit. Now, what was happening there is that we would sit with SETA and we would discuss certain opportunities and what they needed to change to make sure that the SMMEs can actually benefit. And it can also improve the BEE scoring of SETA. We used to actually even talk about that. Now, someone came and crashed that thing. Now, we were advocating for that in post office, in BBI, and in everywhere. And I want to challenge BBI that when they form the new entity as well, that they must look at having that transformation unit. No one will tell you about SMMEs other than us. No one. We deal with SMMEs, BITF, Osanele, the Chamber, Qiniso, BPICT. We deal with SMMEs every day. There's SABISPA, there's Youth Economic Alliance. Call us, all of you as entities and as government. Let us sit down and say, how do we ensure that the environment is not poisonous for SMMEs? And how can we work together? That's one of the things that we need to do. And there's a lot of issues that we can then address in there. SETA had a very good innovation and a solution for solving this problem, the Industry Transformation Unit. That must be reinstated. Not only reinstated just at SETA, but all state-owned entities need to look at that. You need to go look at broadband infraco, especially their procurement. How are they in the same legislation able to do what they've done? Transformation was challenged up to the Constitutional Court, and unfortunately, AfriForum lost. And government came back and tell you that no, you are supposed to do that. Now, if you look at the Constitution and you read it, it will tell you that, yes, mustn't be racist, mustn't be this and that, but in there it makes provision that if it's addressing an issue from the previous regime, because it was never government, If it's addressing that issue and it's addressing transformation, then you can apply these things. But we as government, we refuse to do that. Now what happens? Politicians make a decision. In December, they'll be making decisions. We'll go to election 2024, people will make a decision who they want to lead in government. Now, when it gets in there, now you have an entire process that is written to go and amend the legislation. We make inputs on it because it's not favoring someone. Now, from the DG level, ministers are fine. They know what, they can amend it. Comes to the DG knows what they're supposed to do. Comes one level down, starts getting diluted. They send it one level down, gets diluted even more, up until a point it gets to this level where they dominate. Those are the people that are the poison to transformation in this country. Now, I'll make a very simple example. We're in business, we have some contracts. We know where we stand. Now, some political parties, when they came into a municipality and they win, the first thing they do, they say, hey, Leon, there's your letter of termination. Because we're not aligned politically. And it happens. Go look at City of Joburg. See where's the black SMMEs that were doing work with the City of Joburg. They gone, there's only 2 or 3 companies now that's doing all that work in City of Joburg. And it's the same ones that's doing work in the City of Cape Town. Same ones that were imposed also in Nelson Mandela Bay. We want to be apologetic. We want to be apologetic. Yet when we have to write reports and we have to do presentations, we make things look and seem as if they are okay, as if we're doing a good job. We are not. Legislation norms, so if we have to really look at it, do you know that we do not have to change it to address transformation? If you look at the PFMA properly, from a progressive mind, you look at it in conjunction with the Constitution, you look at the supply chain framework, you look at everything, it will tell you that the people that wrote this legislation, when they were thinking, they were revolutionaries. Because it says, government, if you cannot provide a service, look at other government entities. Otherwise, look at PBI or whichever other state-owned entities and do the work there. Or if there's a municipality that can provide. If ESCOM, you want electricity, go to ESCOM if you can't provide electricity. Municipalities can provide, can generate electricity. If they can generate electricity, they don't need to buy it from ESCOM. But if they can't, they must buy it from ESCOM. Then it says, if you do not find government, go to community-based organizations or otherwise entities. And that you should talk your cooperative, your SMMEs and that. If you can't, then go out to market. That is where we go wrong, and that is what we need to change. Thank you.
Thank you so much, my panelist. I know we ran out of time and we've been eating on the next presentation's time, but I'm very tempted to request for questions, but I will not. And perhaps maybe you can get hold of my panel members during the networking time. And I really want to thank you for the insights, the provision of skills, technical skills development, a paradigm change, not only in the executive, but also in the middle management and the people that actually have to act on transformation. And I think if we were to document this, this will be such a great policy formulation contribution for policies that are meant to actually enrich SMMEs. So I really want to thank you for making time and for these insights and your perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them a round of applause.
Okay.
But I see there's a very persistent hand up there. And I want to say, come closer maybe,
After.
because I don't have someone to give you the mic. Oh, okay, so panelists.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Tabang Tsia. I'm from Gauteng Department of Economic development. I'm just saying that if we don't take these matters that are raised in this forum serious and maybe engage CETA and give them an opportunity also to respond, I think we will just turn this important occasion into a talk shop. Because also from departments ourselves, we are concerned with transformation and with the way things are being dealt with through CETA. Let me make an example. CETA has original equipment manufacturer framework contracts and make provision for subcontracting to SMMEs or any other companies that are transformed. So if you talk of original equipment manufacturer like Esri, is an American-based company that you then award a contract. For instance, in the Gauteng, we have a GIS contract for 3 years. It means every 3 years we'll renew it, but there's no role for SMMEs to play or to get into that space. So we need to give CETA also an opportunity to respond to these issues so that in future they can make different arrangements that will benefit SMMEs. Thank you.
I think I do want to take that, but I'm only seeing only the deputy chair of the CETA board, and I don't want to bring her or put her in a corner. But what Dr. Rolls has suggested regarding that industrial transformation unit, I think this is one of the most crisp and quite clear, theories of change where CETA can begin, or any other state-owned entity, to actually ensure that there is transformation that can be monitored and can actually be quantified, that you moved SMME business A from earning 100,000 a year, and now they are earning 2 million a year, and then after a year they've grown up to 20 million. So I think there are a couple of ideas that all the lobby groups can put together, and I think they do in quite a very prominent way, that can be brought into city. And also there is a committee that actually takes up these ideas, right, Leon? Yeah. So, Dr. Vuma, I know I'm going to put you on the spot. There's a note we're going to give you. And in that note, we want to actually see the outcomes of this discussion being part of the agenda at CETA regarding transformation. And I think from there, we can sort of start from that point, even though it's something that has commenced a long time ago, but it can be something that can start to see, we can start to see impact as SMMEs. Is that fine? I think that's a start. I can follow up with Dr. Vuma and share with the leaders of these lobby groups. And coming up, and I know sometimes, it's almost 5, but we're going to have our last presentation from the Director General at the Department of Small Business Development, and is going to share the insights of how the department has worked to really optimize policies so that it responds to some of these issues and challenges that we are seeing that are quite very old, and one would think that we are really repeating and there's no change. But my boss in another side is going to come and share on how the department is really working towards to unlock and also synthesize some of these issues. So I'm going to give you the stage, my leader. I don't think they've mic'd you, ne? Or use
No, no, no. Are these not working? These ones are not working. Okay. Good afternoon. Normally they call these graveyard shifts. I don't know this one. Just before 5, whether it's an ancestor shift, it's beyond graveyard. I will try and be very brief. I think we had a very robust discussion with the previous panel, and I was here listening attentively because it's good sometimes to get feedback rather than just doing and continuing doing what you've been doing in the past. So it's important for us to really look at the issues that have been raised. I think one of the key issues that was raised is localization and consumption by government of the the work that is done by SMMEs, especially those that are involved in the ICT space. And I think it's one of the things that we're going to take up. We have, as a department, looked at government spend and identified products that we said these products can and should be produced locally by SMEs instead of us importing these products or even giving them to big businesses. But it's important for us also to be clear that if it goes to small businesses, they must also go to, the price must be right. That's why from CEDA side in particular, we do support small businesses with the quality issues, the pricing, the packaging, the marketing, and all these other things that are necessary for a small business to be successful. I'm not sure, Nomsa, whether I still have to run with the presentation. I know that it's very late. I'm not sure whether it's projecting. I don't know how to use this technology. Okay. Okay, I'll try and skip a lot of information. I think it has been shared. But just to highlight here that we know that SMMEs are not just, not contributing that much. They are contributing a lot in terms of the total turnover. For example, you can see out of the 11 trillion, SMEs, they contributed 23%. And you can see on the slide that there has been a consistent growth in terms of small businesses, even from 2016 to 2020, they've been growing from 16% to 23%. These are the issues that have been raised in all the studies that we've done. It's similar issues. They date back years. You'll see that in 1995, there was an SMME white paper that spoke to the similar issues that were raised by SMMEs. But I think the challenge has been this consistent implementation across all spheres of government. You see issues around poor infrastructure, management skills, lack of innovation and research development, recognition by large firms, regulation and red tape, a lack of access to land, amongst other issues. This is just a deeper analysis in terms of what has been happening, especially when it comes to access to finance. These are the issues that we are dealing with in terms of, we are in the process of finalizing the first of its kind, which is an SMME and cooperatives funding policy, which is driven by government, but we're working closely with the private sector because we've seen that as government, we can never, ever be able to satisfy the need because it is estimated, in fact, these are 2017 statistics from FinFine, that the demand for finance is between 86 billion and 346 billion. So obviously, as government alone, we will never be able to have this money to support SMEs. So we are in that process of finalizing the first policy that will be talking to support financial support for small businesses. We've started addressing this, even though the policy is not finalized. For example, through small enterprise finance agencies, for example, they've changed from asking you to come with collateral. You can be funded based on cash flow projections. These are some of the issues that also were raised. I'm not going to dwell on these ones. It's issues around skills, which is very critical because you cannot really run a business if you don't have the appropriate skills to run the business. This is one of the critical slides that maybe I'll spend a few minutes on. Our mandate, we know that there are those SMMEs that are just there for survival, but there are those SMEs that are growth focused, that are supposed to assist the country to grow. That's why, we try and strike a balance between supporting those that are growth focused, because we know that's where we're going to see transformation. That's where we're going to see jobs created, but that's where we're also going to see economic growth being pushed by small businesses. And then on the other hand, we have livelihood support, where we do see most of these SMEs are based in township and rural areas. We are saying as government, we have to support both, because some of them that are going to be coming from the livelihood support are going to grow and become big businesses in the future. So this continuous support and making sure that we are able to handhold these SMMEs is critical for us as government. Then from government side, these are the things that we are pushing for, that we need to do to address the issues that were raised in the past. We, as government, we have come up with quite a number of policies, including the white paper that I spoke about earlier. It identified the same issues that I challenged. This was done in 1995. We have the National Small Enterprise Act, Cooperatives Development Act. We also have the integrated strategy for promotion of entrepreneurship and small enterprises. We've done an evaluation of the implementation of this because it doesn't help us as government to keep on coming up with new policies and not evaluate whether we are able to implement this. After the evaluation of this ISPESE, we were able to come up with what we call the NISET Master Plan, which is aimed at addressing those issues that were not addressed when we were implementing the ISPESE. So we are in the process now of finalizing this NISET Master Plan. We've consulted, we've taken it to Cabinet, and Cabinet said, go and consult one last time. Right now, we are busy with this process at NEDLEC, where we are saying we need to have one master plan that talks to small businesses. There's quite a number of policies, number of regulations across government, but there is no master plan that talks to how we should, as government, together with the private sector, we can address issues that are affecting small businesses. Some of the impacts, we're talking to the move small business, more small enterprises productively contributing to GDP, significant increase in the formal employment by SMMEs. These are the things that we intend to achieve with this NISET master plan. One of the critical interventions that we are busy with currently, there has been this disconnect between SEDA, which provide non-financial support, and SEFA, which provide financial support. As a person will go to SEDA, ask them to assist them with a business plan, and then take the same business plan to SEFA, and SEFA say, no, this business plan is not viable. So government took a decision, Cabinet took a decision that you must combine these two entities, make sure that there is that link between non-financial support and financial support. So we are in that process. Cabinet has given us until the 1st of December to make sure that we have one entity by then. This is just a continuation in terms of the issues that we are trying to address. This is a breakdown in terms of the pillars of the NISET master plan that we are busy with. One of the issues that we identified was the information asymmetry, that there is a challenge in South Africa, that everyone, they come up with their own figures. Others, for example, they will tell you, no, there are 3 million SMEs in South Africa, others 2.6 million, others they will tell you it's 1.9 million. So it's a challenge, that thing. How do you develop policies if you don't know the actual number of SMEs, in which sectors they are involved in, how far are they in terms of development, what are their needs? So we are addressing these things through the pillar one of the NISET master plan, making sure that we improve the definition, because there is a challenge when it comes to BE, for example. They use different definition. You go to Department of Labor, they use a different definition. You go to SARS, they use a different definition. So it's a challenge that we are addressing through this master plan. Make sure that we publish, yearly trends, impact, and future consideration. What we want to see is that we need to have this regular research around SMMEs. It cannot be that research or still focuses on big businesses. So that's one of the areas that we are trying to address, so that we are able to come up with proper policies. Then the second one is the policy uncertainty. I think this is one of the biggest issues that affect all SMMEs. They've raised this with us, they've been raising it with government, and I think the president has even appointed someone in the presidency to drive red tape issues, because there has been these challenges. There is no policy coordination across government. There's no policy coordination even with the private sector, because we cannot do everything on our own as government. We want to work closely with the private sector to make sure that we are able to transform the economy. Reform laws and regulation to make SME grow faster. One of the key issues that has been given to us, the key task, is to ensure that we assess all policies and regulations that are hindering the growth of SMMEs. And we're going to take that report to Cabinet and say, Cabinet, these are the issues that have been raised by this research. We need to change these policies, because it becomes a challenge for us as a department when we are driving these matters alone, because other government, they will tell you, no, these are the rules, people have to abide by this. So if we take it to Cabinet, Cabinet can take decisions that we must change that, so that we make the lives of SMMEs easier. So reducing red tape. We're also in the process of establishing this SMME Ombud. We are finalizing the legislation, which must go to Parliament soon, so that we have this alternative dispute resolution mechanism. Because one of the issues that has been raised by SMMEs is that even government and big businesses, they will change contract terms midway through the contract, because they know that you don't have resources to fight back and make sure that they stick to the contract terms. They don't pay SMEs on time. Even government departments, they don't pay SMEs on time. So we establishing this ombud so that you can have this alternative dispute resolution mechanism and hold us as accounting officers accountable for not paying SMMEs on time. And then the next pillar, pillar 4, development service delivery shortfall. We have been accused of creating institutions after institutions most of the time as government. We don't address the issues that are affecting small businesses. You'll see that at national level, there are agencies, at provincial level, there are agencies, even at municipal level, there are agencies. They are all trying to address the same issues. So we need to align this financial and non-financial support and make sure that we create this single agency. So we've started with that process. It's not easy, but we are going to deliver because Cabinet gave us 31st of December 2023 to make sure that we have one single entity. So we are working on that and making sure that at least there is one single entity that delivers both financial and non-financial support. And then we're also pushing using the district development model to make sure that we spread these services so that they are accessible, because most of the time you find that the institutions that support SMEs are only based in urban areas where it's difficult for people who are in rural areas to access this. So we're working closely with municipalities here, making sure that there are co-location points that are established. We utilize the infrastructure that is owned by municipalities to set up these services. Also, our SME support plan, where we are keeping or having targets for specific regions, because it becomes easy if for example, you come to Durban, you want to get SMEs who need financial support. It's easy to get SMEs here. But if you go outside of Durban, you go to Ngwavuma, when we end up not supporting those SMEs. So we are putting those targets that in a particular district, you must have so many SMEs. It should not be just an achievement that you supported 100 SMEs. It should be specific that from this particular region, these are the SMEs that were supported. So those are some of the issues that we are trying to address. I'm trying to be as quick as possible. This is one of the issues. I think it was displayed by the previous session, this mistrust between business and government, which is something that we are aware of, and we are confronting it head on, because we believe that there needs to be that trust between government and the business sector. Also, we are pushing as a department to make sure that the voice of SMEs are elevated. So within government, we advocate, for the setting aside of certain products for SMEs, working closely with the private sector because we don't have the resources, but also the coordination of support, public-private sector partnerships. These are some of the things that we are saying. We need to have these partnerships. We need to have all these stakeholders assisting us. So here we're just listing things that has to be done by the private sector to assist us to support SMEs accordingly. I try to be very quick, Nomso, but just to indicate one thing that I think one has to respond to as one of the accounting officers in government, just to defend them a little bit. There has been a realization from National Treasury side in particular that sometimes the laws that we put are not assisting us to drive transformation. We become risk averse because once you make a mistake, you try to implement something, you try to be innovative, you try to be entrepreneurial, your AG comes and say, this is irregular expenditure. So there is a process that has been started. The acting DG of the Department of Finance has indicated, I'll just read what he said. He said, the service managers are so risk averse in the performance of their function that they are too scared to make decisions. He said Treasury was looking at ways to allow managers to manage while making them more accountable. He stressed that there should not be a conflation between corruption and the transgression of regulations. There was a need to focus on irregular expenditure, which amounted to corruption. There has been a real confusion, maybe over the last 10 years or so, where we are conflating corruption and what is rule transgressions. You can transgress a rule and there has been no corruption at all. Nobody has made money. So these are the issues, colleagues, that while we are trying to push the transformation agenda, we always have to be careful in terms of how we make decisions, because what you see, you will see an article that another corrupt government official has been fired. Whereas when you were trying to drive this economic transformation that we are trying to drive. Just to make one point as well, what we've realized is that the support that we are providing as a Department of Small Business Development together with our entities, CEDA and CIFA, is not enough. For example, if I give you statistics that since between 2018-19 to the 31st of December 2021, CEDA dispersed 5.6 billion. But you'll always find people who say this institution is not working because the money is not enough. That's why we push, for these partnerships. But Nomso, without wasting a lot of time, we still want to have a proper discussion, especially with the SMEs from the ICT sector, so that we are able to understand from their side, because most of the time we don't focusing on those SMEs that are producing the actual products, the tangible products. I thank you very much. Thank you for giving me your time, even though it's late in the day. Thank you.
Thank you, my leader. Appreciate that. No, you may, because I'm about to close. It's one of the DJs that I know that work very well. Ladies and gentlemen, I think for now we are going to take two things from this presentation. We've had the inputs from the lobby groups, and I've taken a task to actually take the idea of having the industry transformation unit. And I think I will communicate that. Oh yes, Dr. Vuma is there. I'll communicate that with the deputy chair of the CETA board, and also be a link also to the DG of the Department of Small Businesses. And most importantly, I think the outcomes of these discussions will really enable what my colleague from the Department of Economic Development in Gauteng, some of these difficult conversations as well as implementation plans, so that we are able to say in the next GovTech, and I really task CETA on this. In the next GovTech, what we discussed today, this has been the improvement that we can boast about, that it has done for the SMME ecosystem. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to really thank you for your patience, your time, and sticking by and being part of really an audience over these discussions. And I know you'll be looking for accountability over what has been discussed. And I stand to really task myself to ensure that there is a link between the lobby groups as well as the department. And I want to thank you once again for taking time, and you must have a very good evening. Thank you so much.
A South African developed cloud-based e-learning platform. DigiLimbs enables blended learning while digitizing all important administrative processes, from applications to graduation, with powerful enterprise-scale dashboarding and reporting, which enables standardization, compliance management, monitoring and evaluation, and impact measurement. DigiLimbs provides digital capability in support of post-school education and training in alignment with the National Skills Development Strategy for both academic and skills development programs. DigiLimbs is designed to support accredited training providers, skills authorities, TVET colleges, CET centers,
Oh, wait a second.
and government
So
departments.
Caster Siminya is here,
Plan,
and she's going to
coordinate, train,
motivate
learn,
us.
collaborate,
So
grow.
that slipped
Anyone,
my mind.
anywhere,
Please don't go.
anytime, anyhow.
The main plenary room. Please, let's go here. Perhaps maybe you'll be motivated to run the Comrades Marathon next year.
A South African developed cloud-based e-learning platform. DigiLimbs enables blended learning while digitizing all important administrative processes, from applications to graduation, with powerful enterprise-scale dashboarding and reporting, which enables standardization, compliance management, monitoring and evaluation, and impact measurement. DigiLimbs provides digital capability in support of post-school education and training in alignment with the National Skills Development Strategy for both academic and skills development programs. DigiLimbs is designed to support accredited training providers, skills authorities, TVET colleges, CET centers, and government departments. DigiLimbs. Plan, coordinate, train, learn, collaborate, grow. Anyone, anywhere, anytime, anyhow.